So kind of why to choose Talking LabQuest, as you stated earlier, it's a more equitable option to allow people to be able to interact with things on their own, as opposed to relying on somebody else when possible. There are still going to be instances where you do in fact need a sighted helper. I'm not saying that method is outdated, just whenever you can add some independence and engagement to it, it helps people to learn better. As well as if you can hear it, as well as there's also the visual display. So if you can hear and see it at the same time, or choose whichever preference you want there, then you can engage more of your brain and be able to learn about your lesson more and remember it better. As well as our company is comprised entirely of scientists who are blind ourselves. So it's not just, there were sighted people who made a technology which they thought would help, which is often the case of many different technologies. This is actually, we're all successful blind scientists ourselves, and we made something that we thought would help out ourselves and hopefully others as well, and have been continuing trying to mess with the keyboard edits and things like that in order to best move that out to as many disabilities as we possibly can. So I already showed you the high contrast mode, so we don't need to worry about that. There is a periodic table.
Main desktop. Calculator. Periodic table.
And being a chemist, I will say this has more information than you will ever need to know. So you can scroll through on our very lovely periodic table here.
Lithium. Sodium.
So let's learn some about sodium, see what all we can learn.
Na. Sodium. Name. Sodium. Symbol. Na. Atomic number. 11. Atomic weight. U. 22.98 times 770. Density grams per cubic centimeter. 0.97. Melting point kelvins. 370.96. Boiling point Kelvin. 1156.1. Atomic radius picometers. 223. Covalent radius picometers. 154. Atomic volume cubic centimeters per mole. 23.7. Specific heat joules per gram Kelvin. 1.22. Heat of fusion kilojoules per mole. 2.64. Heat of vaporization kilojoules per mole. 97.9. Electronegativity 0.93. First ionization energy kilojoules per mole. 495.6. Oxidation states +1. Electron configuration Ne3S1. Appearance soft, silvery white metal. Discovery date 1807, England. Discovered by Sir Humphrey Davy.
So with that, that was a lot of information, and you might not need to use most of it, but this is information that's usually readily available on a visual periodic table to most people, but is not really readily available unless I want to have a book that's about a foot high, so in Braille or in audio. So now I have that all at my fingertips here, and I can just simply hit escape.
Periodic table of elements.
And go through.
Potassium. K. Potassium. Name. Potassium.
And I have all of that information for every single element on the periodic table, and can easily hit escape, go back and forth, and learn more about
I've got
that.
a question.
Yeah.
So you seem to find these pretty fast. Are they organized by alphabetical order or by atomic number?
So it's ordered the same way that the periodic table is, by atomic number. We believed that, as most of us are chemists, that the ordering of the periodic table, it was set in that order for a reason, and it conveys a lot of meaning when you're learning about it. So right now, we might add a search feature in the future, but our preference was to be able to scroll through using the left and right arrow keys in order to figure out where in the periodic table you had to go so that you understand those periodic trends better, as opposed to just being like, okay, Google, what is, which doesn't help you understand the trends at all. And if you, traditionally for a blind or low vision student, it would be listed out in alphabetical order, and then people start talking about periodic trends and how you figure that out, and no one has any clue what's happening. So this was a way to kind of give a spatial orientation of what was going on there. And I also find them quickly because I cheat. I have a bachelor's in chemistry, so I had many years to learn it. Then we have a live tone play is one of our newer features. So
Main desktop.
if we go back to the main desktop,
LabQuest application. Notes page.
and then
Menu. File. Menu. Menu. Notes. Menu. File.
let's see here.
Text box length.
I don't want that. Come on. Cooperate with me. What are you doing right now?
Menu item new.
Ah.
Menu item. Text box length. Sensor
There we
page.
go.
Detail box data collection.
I got stuck in a menu.
21.3.
So,
Menu. File. Menu. Menu. Sensors. Menu. Menu. Readout. Check menu item. Menu. Live sensor tone.
so we have now we call a live sensor tone, which is sort of a musical equivalent of what is actually happening in your laboratory experiment. So if you're looking for a titration or a sudden change in your data, this is a good way that you can just hear it auditorily and be able to figure that out. But the numbers are still on the screen if you're looking just for a sudden peak as well. So
Radio menu item non-selected. Menu. File. Menu item submenu closed.
no, come on.
21.3. Detail box data collection. Detail box data collection. Menu. File. Menu. Menu. Sensors. Menu. Menu. Readout. Check menu item. Menu. Live sensor tone. Radio menu item non-selected. Radio menu item CH1. Temperature probe not selected. Radio menu item CH1. Temperature probe selected. CH1. Temperature 21.4 degrees Celsius.
So then
CH1.
I'm going,
Temperature menu.
I do this
File.
partially
Menu.
visual sometimes.
Sensors. Menu. Readout. Check menu. Menu. Live sensor
If I
tone.
hit enter on this,
Radio menu item none not selected. Radio menu. Menu. File. Submenu closed.
do it of course.
CH1. Menu. File. Menu. Sensors. Menu. Readout. Menu. Live sensor tone. Check menu item live tone only during collection checked. Check menu item live
So this
tone
is the
only
tone
during
that
collection
plays.
not checked.
It'll go up when the temperature goes up,
CH1.
and down when the temperature goes down.
21.8 degrees Celsius.
So I can just do that.
CH1. Temperature
And
23.2 degrees Celsius. CH1. Temperature
And then it slowly
20.9
gets more
degrees
pleasant to listen
Celsius.
to there.
CH1. Temperature 7.8 degrees. Graph page. Push button. Run selector.
So then if you also, maybe you have a graph and you want an audio representation of the graph, then we also have sonification of the graph and the graph that we recorded earlier. So if you listen closely, you'll hear a small popping noise, and that will play at every 25, 50, 75% to give you an idea of where in the graph something happened.
Menu. File. Menu. Graph. Menu. Sonify. Menu. Start sonification. Menu item temperature. Run. Push button. Run selector.
So we can hear until about 50% of that graph it went up, and then I stuck it in ice water and it tanked. So we can get that out of that, as well as if you have a student that prefers tactiles, you can also work with an embosser and make a raised line of this graph as well. So then we can go back up to the
Sensor page, detail box, data collection, graph page, push button, run selector, push button, store run, plot details box, run 1 temperature.
So on this page, we always emphasize to students, especially the younger ones, that this is not to do your math for you. This is to check to make sure you understand how to do your math. And so we don't usually tell students about this until later, once they actually know their math. But then they can go to this, hit
Plot
enter.
details, push button, OK, delta x, 30.0, delta v, 90.0, samples, 27,
So we ran 27
STP
samples.
dev, 7.3989,
We had a 7.839 standard deviation.
mean, 16.2,
16.2 is our average temperature we have.
max, 23.9 at 5.0,
So at 5 seconds, 23.9 degrees was the hottest that it got.
min, 4.9 at 30.0,
At 13 seconds, 14.9 was our minimum.
expandable section statistics open,
So we can go through and read off all of our statistics page there as well.
LabQuest application, graph page, plot details box, run 1 temperature.
I believe this is a page that says embossing, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, well, I already told you about that. Embossing is the fancy way to say raised line drawing, so you can work with raised line drawing on that. We do have a 4-function calculator on there. Is anyone interested in seeing the calculator? It's a calculator. I assume you guys know how to add, subtract. It's got a calculator on there.
Pretty simple.
So, then we all know that a lot of classrooms today are multilingual. So we do have options for that as well. So if I go
Main desktop,
over,
calculator, periodic, connections, preferences folder, system folder, main desktop,
and this
system
part
information,
is a bit of an
connect
added fee,
Bluetooth,
but it's
power
not.
status, language,
Alright.
combo box,
So
English,
it can speak in Spanish, Portuguese, French, Italian, and German. Is anyone in here fluent with any of those?
No.
Yeah. Okay, well,
English, Deutsch, Espanol,
we'll just turn it to Spanish.
I know a
change
little of that.
language,
You know a little of
changing
that?
language
My mom's
requires to
Spanish.
restart LabQuest. Do you want to proceed?
And I call this my dummy feature because it will check, did you really want to turn that? Because when it changes the language, you really need to know the language or be familiar with the screens, or you're going to be stuck in a different mode. So,
Push button, no, push button,
but in
yes.
this case, we do want to change it.
Sci-Voice Talking LabQuest versión 2. Iniciar la aplicación LabQuest. Por favor espera. Aplicación LabQuest. Página de sensor. Se ha detectado un archivo de LabQuest remoto o de autorrecuperación. Quisiera abrirlo.
So what that loosely translates to is, we have detected you previously had saved data. Would you like to open that saved data that you just made, or would you like to delete that?
Pulsador. Cancelar.
And in this case we don't, so we'll hit cancel. And then we have on here,
C1. Temperatura 20,3 grados Celsius.
so now we have it announcing in Spanish.
Temperatura 20,4 grados Celsius.
And if you're visual, you'll notice it changed to a comma instead of a decimal point, which is the common aspect for Spain. So in parts of the world that a comma is used instead of a period, it changes for that as well.
C1. Temperatura 22,7. Escritorio principal. Calculator. Tabla periódica.
So I can open my periodic table again.
Tabla periódica. Litio. Sodio.
And I can open sodium again.
Sodio, nome, sodio, simbolo, Na.
And it will tell me all of the same information that it told me last time, but now in Spanish. So.
Escritorio principal, calculador, tabla periódica, conexiones, carpeta de preferencias, carpeta de sistema. Escritorio principal, información del conecte, un teclado, estado de energía, tiempo actual, lenguaje, caja combo español, francais, italiano, portugués, francais, español, Deutsch, English. Cambiar lengua, cambio de región requiere reiniciar LabQuest. ¿Lo quiere realizar? Pulsador, ninguno. Pulsador, sí.
And then that was just asking the same thing again. Do you want to change
Sci-Voice
LabQuest to
Talking
English?
LabQuest
Yes or no?
version 2. Starting LabQuest application. Please wait. LabQuest application. Sensor page. Details box. Data
Some
connection.
additional features and
CH1.
commands
Temperature
that we can have on here
21.9 degrees
is we can
Celsius.
make that softer or louder as
CH
people
louder.
prefer. And
CH1.
then we can record
Temperature
data at the touch of a button.
21.9 degrees Celsius.
We can
Main desktop.
F4 is kind of a back and forth key, so if I was on the periodic table last, it will flip me to the periodic table on the main desktop, or the LabQuest app in the main desktop, whatever the last two things you were in was.
LabQuest application. Sensor page.
We can go faster or slower
Faster.
to adjust the speed as we
CH1.
want to.
Temperature 21.8. The battery is discharging. Currently at 86% capacity.
Because I don't want it to die on me in the middle
Temperature
of my experiment.
21.8 degrees Celsius. 4:23 a.m.
If I actually bothered to set the time properly, that would tell me the current time,
Temperature
which
21.7
can be
degrees
useful.
Celsius. Main desktop.
That can be useful in order to figure out if you have a timed experiment. If you're saying, I want to figure out what my 15-minute elapse was, it can help me check the time really quick there. And then we just have our menu selection, and then our switching back and forth between the main table pages. So pretty easy, relies on the function keys, the escape key. Enter does what enter does, arrow keys. And so it's basically pretty intuitive from the start. You can get a 5th grader up and running with it in maybe like 30 minutes. And then 5th grade and up can be used by themselves. If you have a student who's below 5th grade, you can still use it with them, just most of the time you end up requiring some supervision. We've had people fit through postdoc, so we have people bring these to work. They look a lot like what is frequently called a chemistry Game Boy with HPLCs and other laboratory equipment, so it looks pretty normal to be carrying something like this around, so it's not awkward. You'll also notice that it's small, it's handheld. I could stick it in my pocket if I wanted to bring it along. If I have a biology experiment that I want to go do it down at the lake or in the forest. It's not the handheld machine of, let me bring my giant cart. So it will allow you to go investigate in the field if you'd like.
LabQuest application, sensor page.
A lot of times instructors
CH1,
have a lot
main
of
desktop.
instructors have a lot of things where they're constantly learning new technology, and we understood that a lot of people don't always want to try to learn all the new technology, and so this also has a touchscreen.
Connections.
So if you feel like
radio button off selected.
if you feel like instead you would like to just poke at the screen, you can do that if you don't want to learn the key commands, or you can learn key commands, use it with a keyboard, a stylus, or just your finger will work as well.
Are there
A
any,
pen works. The back of a pen works too.
Yeah, there's a little stylus.
No,
This-
this one's lost it.
Yeah. I've lost a lot of them in my luggage, but
is any part of this voice activated?
Is any part of it voice activated? Unfortunately not at this moment. That's one of the features. We have a list of about 50 features that we would like to add on the premise of getting more funding money. So, the fun that never ends.
Can you change the voice on it?
So right now, that's another one of the top things, because this is off of a thing called eSpeak, which isn't the most pleasant, most human sounding voice. So we're working on fixing that. Right now it does have the option of male or female and pitch change for if you have hearing loss at a certain frequency. But it is still eSpeak, so it's not that happy right yet. But we are working on that currently.
Does that interface with any of the Braille note touches or any of those portable devices?
We're working right now with Desmos and TI-84 to integrate a better calculator onto there and possibly make it into a note taker in the future. And that's something we're working towards.
But
But right
doesn't
now,
have capability of Braille output. I'm just thinking.
right now it
of
does
students
not,
who
but
are
that's
deafblind.
on the wish list. And so
The
with
wish must be a mile long.
it is. You can never make something perfect. So, we are working towards that constantly. Another new thing I forgot to mention on here was that the new ones do have as well Bluetooth sensor capability. So if you wanted to add in a Bluetooth sensor, if you have somebody who doesn't want to deal with this wire mess, or it's only best for using smaller numbers of sensors, but you can always use a Bluetooth sensor capability. Now, I note on that one that there is a VIN number on here, that it's best to tell them which VIN number you're connecting to, because you don't want to have 20 of the same sensor in a room and accidentally connect to the person across the rooms. So a lot of times you just add some cheap Dymo Braille label tape, or a piece of tape with large print on there that says what your access code is going to be.
How many sensors can you connect at one time?
So you can, if you want to visually look at it, I wouldn't suggest putting over 4. If you don't want to visually look at it, you can put up to 12.
Okay.
So if you don't care what it looks like, then
But there
you
are
can do
only
that.
4 ports for it.
So there are 3 ports on the side that are BTA, so British Telephone Access, because we didn't want something that was commonly going to just have random things fit in there. And then we have as well digital ports along the top in a flap. And then you can also add additional Bluetooth with that, or add in a splitter for those. There's also a scale that will work with that and balance. And so, summary of it, multilingual, equitable choice, and we can do many different things with that. Do you have any questions right now? Anybody? And remember, if you do this,
It doesn't help.
that it won't be helpful. So does anyone have questions?
I guess, are you familiar with the LabQuest minis?
Yes.
So, we don't have to use the LabQuest in our labs because we have the minis that work with the computer.
Mm-hmm.
Does your software work with the minis?
So
can
we
use that
do
for the
sell a
lab?
version of Logger Pro that's simply just on the computer, and you can use communication with that, and that will work for the Logger Pro system. Just most people aren't interested in carting around a computer with them everywhere, so that is an option as well.
Yeah, in my case, actually, that's probably better because we already have the computers with the Logger Pro.
All right. Well, yeah, we can do versions of Talking Logger Pro with the JAWS scripts as well.
Thank you.
Is there other questions, or shall we play with them ourselves?
Play!
All right. So we have some activities. I'm going to unplug the speaker for the people at my table to the right.
Table 1. Remember we agreed on that so we could do that. You said we call it table 1, 2, and 3, so that way we didn't get confused.
So I labeled them 1, 2, 3. If anyone doesn't see that in the room, because I don't know if there's any other blind people, table 1 is my right, your left. Table 2 is the middle, and table 3 is my left, your right. So then we are going to go back up real quick. Is this the page that says features on it? Am I in the way?
Additional features and key commands.
Alright, so that will have a lot of your key commands on there, so you didn't have to, if you didn't memorize them with my presentation. And
I
so,
don't think anyone did.
let's see, people over here. Marco. Alright, so here's that for you. And so everyone can pull out their LabQuest and work together as a group. There's a keyboard interface on the top left corner if you have the keyboard.
I'm the one without it, and I'm the only one here.
Well, would you prefer to work with a keyboard or without the keyboard?
I don't really care. I've never used a keyboard on this before, so I don't really care.
Alright, that
I'll
works.
just keep going without one. Because I've had experience without one on these, so.
Alright, so if everyone wants to turn that on, you'll have a sensor on the table.